In your 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, you deserve to live your best life. Say goodbye to preconceived notions and let's shatter those stereotypes together. Get ready to own your vitality, because age, well, that's just a number.
Hey, welcome to Age is Just a Number. Thanks for joining us today. And if you haven't, please take a minute, subscribe to the channel, like the video. We put out regular content throughout the week, so you don't want to miss anything. And we're going to get right into it today, and we're going to talk about Zone 2 cardio. So, cardio.
Yay.
And you know, some people are bigger fans or less.
None
so
at all.
of cardio. However, it's vitally important, especially as we age, right? We're talking about when we're in our 40s, our 50s, our 60s, and beyond, the importance of cardio. You can't, whether we like it or not, it's still vitally important.
It's a huge component to fitness.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah.
So, okay, let's talk about Zone 2 cardio. First of all, you might be saying, what is Zone 2 cardio anyway? Zone 2 cardio is 60 to 70%. I've heard also some talk about where they see it more as 80%, but let's just say it's between 60 and 70%, maybe up to 80% of your max heart rate. So an easy rule of thumb is you should be able to do whatever activity you're doing that's Zone 2 cardio and still carry on a conversation. So if we're out of breath, that we can't have a normal conversation, you're probably getting out of Zone 2 cardio. So what are some of the best methods, I guess, because it's easy to track, would be like a treadmill, stair climber, a bike, so anywhere that you can measure your heart rate. So the idea is you want to do the cardio work, whatever it is you're doing, at a high enough level to keep fat oxidation happening, but not so high that you get over that lactate threshold and now you're no longer burning fat. That's what the Zone 2 kind of breaks down as. So, okay, what about how much should I be doing? So the rule of thumb in what we're seeing right now is they're saying somewhere between 70 to 80% of your cardio should be Zone 2. And you might think, well, what about the rest of the cardio that I do? Well, we talked about interval training, which is still
your HIIT versus LISS.
Right.
High intensity cardio versus your low intensity.
Yeah.
Which interval training is more of your HIIT.
Yeah. So you might be doing like VO2 max or just sprints or whatever it might be. That certainly is important to have as part of your workout, your cardio plan. There's a study done over 4 years where they regularly did interval training, and they found after 4 years that the people that were doing the regular interval training were actually 20 years younger. When they did all the tests and everything, they were actually 20 years younger. So it has a place, but what we're seeing right now is the recommendation is that there's that somewhere in that 70% range of Zone 2. I've heard some say higher, like 80%, whatever it might be. But in terms of helping our bodies. Now let's talk about the benefits, because there are some pretty huge benefits for Zone 2 cardio. And the last two that we talk about, I personally think are the most important. But let's just go over them, okay? So number one, you will actually be better at higher intensities. So your body will be more responsive at higher intensity activities because of, think of it this way. If we have a triangle, the Zone 2 is like the base of that triangle. And then we can build on it and build other things on top of it. So we'll get better at other intensities and other activities. So what else? We get better metabolic flexibility. So what does that mean? That means that your body's ability to switch from burning fat to burning carbs, or vice versa, your body just becomes better at that.
Right.
Switching back and forth. So.
But as your body becomes better at it, you have to always be changing the intensity to see, or else all you're going to do is hit a plateau and you won't ever see any change.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a heart rate thing, right? So it's going to, you in theory should be improving as you do it. Just like when we go to the gym and we get stronger, so we should be lifting heavier weight or doing more reps or whatever that case might be,
Right.
because our bodies are doing that adaptive process, right? Okay. It's also the ideal fat burning zone. So we know that you're oxidizing fat ideally in that range when your heart rate is there. Okay, and the last two, and these to me really are the most important ones out of them, is that it increases the size, functionality, and ability of your mitochondria. So as we age, the opposite happens with our mitochondria. This is why zone 2 becomes so effective and so important as we age, because your mitochondria is doing the opposite if we don't do anything about it, right? Which is, again, that's the power source of our muscles and our cells, and nobody wants to find out that your battery's low when you go to start your car.
Right.
Same kind of idea, right? So that's a big one. And then the other one is it improves mental health. And we hear all sorts of issues in our world today with mental health, and especially as people are aging and different things that are going on. So I think this is something that we need to look at in terms of just an overall what it's doing for our health. Okay, so now comes the part you're going to like the best, is how much do you need to do this, or should you be doing? So, because most of your cardio is you're hiking up the mountain, right?
No, I typically do that every day with my dog.
Yeah.
Yes, I hike up the mountain, but I do cardio after I do my weight training in the morning.
Okay. So
I always end with cardio.
Right. But so like treadmill.
Treadmill or spin bike?
So you're like, is that like zone 2? You're not training hard enough
No,
to...
I'm training in zone 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, see, for someone who doesn't like cardio, you're doing the cardio.
I do it because I know the different. Body fat. I'm getting older, and I do it.
Okay, so number one, from a maintenance point of view, 2 days per week
Right.
is kind of the absolute baseline bottom maintenance number. Ideally, what I was reading and what I'm seeing in the research is 3 to 4 days, where they're talking about 4 days is really the sweet spot.
Yep.
Okay. Now here's the other part that I found very interesting. Now you're going to appreciate this.
Okay.
For the frequency and the time and so forth. There's a doctor, Inigo San Millan, who is University of Colorado. He's also the coach of the guy who won the last 2 Tour de France's. And in reading his stuff and watching his stuff, he's saying it should be an hour. He said his recommendation would be an hour and a half each time. So
wow.
I don't think that that's necessarily realistic for where most people are at in life and with time and availability of time.
If I do an hour weight training, I do a 30-minute cardio session
Right.
at the end. I'm not going to do another hour and a half of
Right,
cardio.
right. So here's where, looking at where they're saying a starting point is, and I think for me, that's probably a good place to be, is half an hour.
Right.
So if we're doing that half an hour minimum, let's say 3 times a week, ideally 4 times a week, that's what we need to do to start to get those benefits of the zone 2 training. So final thing, how do you figure out your max heart rate? So there's a formula that you can use to do that. There's also probably an even truer form or way to do that is to run for 3 minutes on the treadmill. So it's got to be at a pace that you can keep running the whole time. Run for 3 minutes on the treadmill at an incline, so not flat, and at a reasonable incline, and then check your heart rate at the end of that. And that will give you what should be your max heart rate. And then you just figure out what is 70% of that or 80% of that, what is 60% of that for the bottom of your zone 2. The other way that you can do it is you can take your age times 0.7 and subtract that number from 208. And what that gives you is your max heart rate. So mine is 170 when I did it. So yours would be very similar, close to that.
Yeah.
Ruth's might be like 160. Because as you get older, that number comes down, right? So that's it for today. What about Zone 2? It should be part of your training. What about the high intensity stuff? That should be part of your training. It's all putting it all together, right? So that it fits.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is if you're going to step on a treadmill, if you're going to step on or climb on a spin bike and you want to do cardio, understand what you're doing and understand what cardio looks like. Because if you want to, best use of your time, make it the most effective that you can. So if you're going to do 30 minutes on a treadmill, make it count.
Make it count. Well, thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.